Here is an interesting nuance. Um, Let me describe the situation. The situation is multiple Bluetooth devices. Unknown is, are they on the same Bluetooth frequency channel? Because I don't quite understand. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Kimifun makes a Bluetooth, well, wireless, let's just call it wireless, because I don't know if it's Bluetooth or wireless or what. I don't know what it is. I assume it's Bluetooth. But at any rate, here it is, right? This is the receiver. I'm sorry, this is the microphone unit. And this is the one you wear. And the other one gets plugged into your receiving device, computer, camera, whatever, via, not a USB, but an analog, actual 1/8 inch jack. So this I'm wearing is the sender microphone analog. Is it? Or is it digital? I think it's analog. And it's going from me. Well, no, it's digital. It's going from me to the receiver. Now, that's the receiver over behind me, actually, not in front of me. What I thought was interference, from another one that I have plugged into the camera. It was on. It was turned on. So that one on the camera was receiving, was it? Was it receiving? I don't know, because the only way to know is that if you hit the record button and then play it back, because it's recording to its little digital chip. But still it was on. And the one over on the computer behind me was also on. So that begs the question. For the Kimifun microphones, which are pretty cool, by the way, pretty good, if you have more than one receiver unit, can they all receive the same signal? And then what if you have multiple microphones? Okay, all those individual receivers come with a microphone. Okay, let's turn them all on. If you turn them all on, do they all? Or is something going to break? Something going to not be heard? Who wins? Okay, this is the question I don't know. This is a question for Kimifun. So if you're listening, watching, please respond and let me know what the situation is. I know you're in China, but if you can translate this, get me some info on how this works. Well, I mean, does anybody else out there know? Let me know. Anyway, so what we're looking at here is the culmination of getting back to the 172 scale gaming. And why are we doing that? Because our 10 millimeter Civil War stuff planned for the Vicksburg scenario is all put away. And we're getting ready to, truck it, jeep it up to Kenosha for the museum event. So it's all put away. And that means all the dice. That means all the trees. Well, the trees aren't, there's no 172 terrain. It's all 10 millimeter. All the hit markers and everything, right? Because it's all, everything is go for that event at the museum. But what do I have for the 172? Well, I have whatever's left, not packed away. So in the past couple of 24 hours, I've been printing more movement trays. Why? Because I don't want to have to go through my stuff and find those movement trays. And because I've got several 3D printers, I can just print them. How many do I need? Not many. That's why I can do that. I'm not printing 100 movement trays, right? I'm not printing 20. I'm printing like 8. Why? Because in the 172 scale gaming for a 4x3 table, it has become clear that you can't really have that many units on the game table. But wait a minute. I've got maps of Gettysburg in 4x3. Oh, that's a different story, isn't it? Look how many units you're going to have. Well, wait a minute. You're not going to have units. Why? Because it's relative. So the 4x3 size of the table for Gettysburg means that you're going to have a unit represent an entire division. Doesn't matter. It's relative, right? A unit is a unit. So if you've got 7 divisions, 8 divisions on one side, that's 8 units. And the same with the Union. Okay? So you got basically 10, 12 movement trays for each side. Cavalry didn't really play into it, but artillery did. So you've got the artillery movement trays and the movement trays for the infantry, which, by the way, should be the same. Now, I have come across a situation where I have older size artillery artillery bases. Because in the old days, I had, when I was doing the P Ridge scenario, I mounted all the artillery on slightly larger bases. That was a mistake. Why? Because you want to have, wherever possible, all the same shape. Doesn't matter what's mounted on it, but you want to have it the same size, same shape, so that the movement trays are uniform. Ambidextrous, they're anti, they're just, you can use them for everything. So, what does that mean? Limbers too? Nah, limbers are different. Because limbers are a long wagon. You can't have a big square movement plate, right? Tray for a long wagon. So you really have to make different ones for the wagons. That's different. How does that work for limbered artillery? You take the model of a cannon off the stand of all the of the gunners, because that's what it happens. That's how it works. You got your stand you got your stand, and you got your crew glued onto it, right? Because the crew can just be taken away from, or the gun can just be taken away. That's the idea. Take the gun away and put it on the put it on the base of the artillery limber, and that is the thing limbered and moving. And then you can just set aside the crew tray, the crew stand. Okay, so you have the crew stand, Lexan, clear, base, tray, and then you have the tray that you put it on when it's unlimbered and ready to shoot or getting ready to shoot. See, so that's the thing. That's the difference. Now, cavalry. Cavalry's mounted on round, 1.5 inch, clear, Lexan, acrylic, whatever, bases. And these bases have to go on their own movement tray. So I've already had those printed though. Why? Because I printed them for World War II. Why? Because the World War II infantry are all mounted to, is it 1.5 or inch? I think it's 1.5. All the squads of World War II 172 scale infantry are mounted on round 1.5 inch size bases. Again, all clear acrylic. All the tanks and all the vehicles, most should be mounted, but don't really have to be because of their size and their robustness. There's not that many things to break or be injured by not putting them on a movement tray or even a base. A lot of the vehicles should be mounted on a base, but they may not be. So, and also in regard to 172, there are things like machine guns or sponson-mounted machine guns on top of the turrets and such, especially Shermans. I have left those off. And also because tankers have told me they took them off. They didn't really want them there. They were just added weight. They didn't need, well, because of the way the war was going, you rarely used that top 50 or the top 30 that was on the tank. They actually just took it off because it does it help in anti-aircraft? No. It was almost pointless to try and shoot down a plane with a 30 caliber or a 50 caliber. It just didn't happen. So any talk of putting those external machine guns on the turret, on the top of the turret, not so much. At any rate, I'm sure they were used, but the fact is I've heard that they took them off. The same with the 30 caliber in the turret, because at the time, well, the war was over. Soon after the Battle of the Bulge, it was over. So therefore, even after D-Day, the use of the 30 caliber in the hull and then the turret came, you see it in Fury, and I'm sure it did happen, but not enough to be significant. So I heard that they just took them out. And they just said, we don't need them. Because they didn't. The Germans were essentially withdrawing all the way to Germany. And the stand-up fights that were happening It just didn't happen enough with enough intensity that those hull and turret-mounted machine guns were necessary. They were, in certain cases, sometimes, yes. I don't want to generalize, but the fact is that I heard from good authority that they just got rid of them. Today is different, but they needed to save as much weight as possible to extend the gasoline mileage, and so they started getting rid of all kinds of stuff. By the way, people have said that the use of sandbags on the front of a Sherman and also other tanks was a deterrent to anti-tank, and I'm informed that that actually was partially true for the most part, that the same could be accomplished with logs. And this is why, after a time, if you had logs, pretty good thickness, you attach them to the front of the tank, and that becomes a deterrent to the anti-tank missiles of the time, shells. And the same with a turret. Now, you also remember you've seen photos and such of the turrets with tracks on them. That's a double purpose. It was for repair, but it also added steel deterrent, I won't say armor, to anti-tank shells. And that is true. That was helpful. And in the last regard to this diversionary conversation, people have said and wondered about the effectiveness of the Churchill after D-Day. The Churchills that landed for the British forces, the Churchills that were available to the Allies in general, that would be the last of two Marks, Mark 4, 5, I think, and 6 maybe. The effectiveness of the Churchill, well, it was a slow tank. It was good for where it was positioned. And of course, we all know what happened at Dieppe, because the sand wasn't sand. It turned out to be pebbles. And because of the bogey design of the Churchill, that became a huge, huge issue. But for the most part in France and Holland, the Churchills were fine. Introduction of the Cromwell a benefit? Not really. I love the Cromwell design, just like I love the Comet design. It's all the same Christie suspension, and everything like that is wonderful. But the upright, no sloping, which is beyond me, why they didn't bother sloping the armor. Well, again, because they had the Germans on the run, why bother? We could make 1,000 of these before, Christmas. So they did. They didn't bother sloping the armor because what was the point? Why put the extra effort in? It was over. Well, they should have thought about post-war, but they didn't. Anyway, it would be interesting, and I've actually thought about that because I do love the tank, and as well I love the Comet as well, to slope that turret and even slope that front glacis plate on the tanks, because I think it would be fantastic to see a design like that. And sorry. The issue of the riveted armor. Okay. So the reason I'm talking about this is because things happen that you don't understand and that you never think about. So like even in Horse and Musket, something's going to happen that, whoa, wait a minute, what? How is this happening? Why is that happening? Why is that? Like Rachel Maddow would say, why is that? Okay, why did that happen? And the reason you're asking why is because you want to go, wait a minute, I don't want that to happen again if it was a bad thing. And if it's a good thing, I want it to happen again. So what you have to question, why did that happen like that? What was the reason for that? What was the impetus? So the shells would hit the side of the Cromwell tank, and even the Comet for that matter, because it was essentially the same turret, just bigger for the Comet, to get that 17-pounder in there. They would hit the rivet, and the rivets would be driven in, well, somewhat like the old Russian tanks. And even on the Czech 38T, which was one of our favorite tanks, just because it's so damn cute, they'd drive the rivets in. They would hit the rivet, and the rivet would be driven in and become extra spalling, things flying around inside the turret. So that's why. Why didn't they do a cast? Again, why bother? Riveting was faster. Casting the turret took longer. And you could make 1,000 tanks by the time you were expecting them to surrender. So that's what they did. Anyway, so that's that. And we'll come back. We put some more troops on the table. As you can see, we got some Union guys pretty much fleshed out. The Russians, the Romans, the rebels are fleshed out, and they got their commander, and they have one piece of artillery. The Union has, by the way, cavalry over here. You probably can't see it, but they're a regiment. Now that's kind of there's 4 companies. Actually, to be more accurate, that is a company, if you will. No, it's 2 companies. Every stand in the American Civil War in this era is a troop or a half of a company is called the troop, I think. Okay, so yeah, every stand is a troop, and there's 2 troops to a company, so therefore there's 2 companies of the 3rd Illinois Cavalry in the game. And the here we go again. The rebels do not have any cavalry. They may get some, but this is what we're doing, right? We're throwing this stuff out here to test stuff. We've got some works, some fortifications that we also 3D printed, which were from the 10 millimeter. We just blew them up into 172. And we printed those, and they look good. Why we did that was because we wanted to see what they would look like and how practical, well, not how practical, but what's it like? We have never done this. We've never done a siege action in 172. We did it in 15 millimeter, but not 172. It's huge. I mean, a fortification of any kind, field works of any kind in 172, that's a lot of work. Not just for me printing it, but to put on the game table. I mean, that takes a long time. I mean, 4 hours, maybe, if you're lucky. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're done by 9, if you're lucky. And you got the right tools. Anyway, so that's it. We'll come back, and that's where we're at. So, anyway, that's a hugely long rant.